My name's Michael, and this is All Departments.
Here come the cherries, and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the cherries, here come the cherries, here come the cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of All Departments. Since the last podcast, our beloved Cherries have been tirelessly setting about trying to broaden their appeal on the sunny south coast and beyond. A billboard featuring players and management has appeared at the Lansdowne under the inarguable heading, Anything is Possible. It's emerged that the court will be hosting an England Women's International against Belarus on the 21st of September, which will also be broadcast live to the nation by the BBC. The new Ted McDougall stand is open for business, putting an end to 13 years of three sides chants from opposition fans. And to accommodate what we all hope will be bigger gates next season, the expanded club shop began trading on the same day, taking record receipts despite the Steve Fletcher mannequin appearing to be making a dash for the exit. After over 40 almost unbroken years of service, the Dickie Dowsett badge has evolved to general acclaim, mainly due to the stripes behind our former striker's head changing from saintly white to cherry black. Pre-season continues apace, with wins against Poole Town, Portsmouth and Dorchester, and narrow defeats to West Ham, Woking and none other than Real Madrid. New signing Mohamed Koulibaly has starred in a couple of those, as has Stefan Zubar, whose stop-start exit from the club is yet to be resolved. The injury list is slightly smaller as Ryan Alsop, Stephen Purchase, Mark Pugh and Union O'Kane have had long overdue run-outs. Whilst the treatment table had an unexpected visitor in the shape of 11-year-old Charlie Silverwood, who took a Cristiano Ronaldo free kick smack on the arm, but showed admirable commitment to the old red and black by delaying treatment until after the final whistle. Well, Eddie Howe's bound to have his share of injury concerns over the course of the coming season, but one man he knows he can always rely on to make it onto the Dean Court pitch is matchday announcer Mike Botto, and he joins us now. Mike, welcome to All Departments.
Thank you very much.
So, to begin with, just tell us how you got the gig as matchday announcer at Dean Court.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I'd been watching Bournemouth since the late 80s. I was a bit of a Glory supporter, really. I started following the team in their first season in what is now the Championship. My old man took me along at the age of 8 and just followed them. And I had a bit of an interest in the media growing up and got myself into commercial radio at about the time that my predecessor was leaving, Jeff Barker. And I just heard on the grapevine that he was leaving, and I sort of gave him a shout and said, look, any chance you could, is the gig going? Any chance you could, we can meet up for a coffee and see what you think? And I sent him a demo, one of my radio demos, and he said, oh, yeah, I'm sure that'd be fine. And I went down to the club and met the then chairman, Peter Phillips, and Lance Riley, who was in charge of the media at the club at the time. And, it was all sort of signed and sealed there and then. Then there was a moment of drama when they decided, actually, they better open this up to all the local DJs. And they advertised it as a gig. I was down to the final two, and then we had a bit of a shout on the mics on the pitch, and I got the gig. So happy days. It was 8 years ago now.
So who was your first match?
Oh, that's a great question, and I should know the answer, but I don't. I honestly don't know. But it was October time, and we certainly weren't doing very well. I know that much. I arrived at a pretty tough time.
Who was the manager then?
It would have been Sean, I think.
Sean O'Driscoll. And so, do you remember anything from those early days? Were you nervous at first, or were you full of confidence just as you are now?
Well, I was cool with public speaking, but I was nervous because Jeff's shoes were big ones to fill. He was a very popular guy. He'd been there, I think he'd been there 8 or 9 years. It was a club that I cared passionately about, so I didn't want to get it wrong, and just kind of trying to pitch it right was all important. So I know that when I go to games, the last thing I want is some prat shouting down a microphone. I was nervous of not coming across as too hammy, but at the same time, your job is to get the crowd up before the game, as well as inform them as to what's happening. So, I was nervous to the reception I'd get, but people in general were pretty decent, and they've warmed to me over the years. And for a lot of fans, a generation of fans, I'm the only announcer they've known there, so it's not so bad really.
Yeah, because when I was going as a boy and probably most of my teenage years, there was no match day announcer, and then it was introduced, and at first it jarred with me a bit, but over the years it's just become part of the match day experience.
Yeah, I remember Abdul Jaffer being under his chairmanship and him talking about razzmatazz and that that wasn't football for me, and that's the way it has gone a little bit. But I'm a fan first and foremost, and I'm there to watch the football just like everybody else. I can go around the stands before the game and I can pull some kids out of the crowd at half time. But let's face it, we're all there to watch football, and I can't help but criticise other announcers when I go around different grounds. So I'm sure if I was in the crowd, I would be giving me a hard time.
Oh, no, I'm sure none of them could live up to your high standards.
Oh, bless you.
So do you have a pre-match routine? Players have certain things they do to prepare for the match, and they have superstitions. I know you have to travel quite a long way these days.
I do. I travel from Luton. I moved up here last year. So, yeah, but it hasn't really changed. I meet up with my family. My late dad, he passed away a few years ago now, but he always used to take us to the same chip shop in Southbourne, a chip shop called Smithson's.
I know it well.
Yeah, and we would always go there. We'd have a pea fritter and chips. And since he passed away, touch wood, every game that I've worked at Bournemouth, I've still managed to go there, grab a pea fritter and chips, and make my way into the ground. And then it's just a case of when I'm there, just running through my notes, checking pronunciations is always quite key. I'm there with the sponsors from 2:00, so same old. Really, it's a routine that I'm well and truly familiar with now.
So, what time do you get the team sheet? About 2:15, something like that?
Yeah, about 2:15. One of the guys from the soundbox will bring that down to me. But the night before, and perhaps sort of just while I'm waiting for the notes to come, I'll have the programme there, so I can run through and double check with the staff of the opposition as to whether names are correct or not.
And is it difficult to identify the goal scorers?
Yeah, it can be actually. Yeah, I've had one or two moments down the years where I've maybe not quite got it right. And own goals always throw me. I still don't know now, after 8-9 years of doing it, whether I should announce an own goal or not. I think I probably shouldn't, and I tend not to. But yeah, they throw me. Picking out a scorer can be difficult, and I do have to sometimes rely on the people around me.
I look on from the stands and quite often got no idea who scored, and people next to me will tell me. I'll listen out for what you say, and maybe I won't find out later until I actually bother to look online. Sometimes it happens so fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just reminds me of a game we were doing. It was only a friendly, thankfully, where Brett went through and scored. I was so excited that he'd scored. I announced it straight away. And then I had people turning to me and explaining that the goal had been disallowed. And there was me giving it the big one. And, he hadn't scored. It can happen from time to time. I know I've announced the wrong name once or twice. But there you go. I don't think people mind too much.
Usually the players are walking off the pitch arguing about who has scored certain goals. And they're standing right in the box. If they don't know, how can you be expected to know?
Absolutely. I'm pleased you said that.
So what happens if you are not present at one of the matches? Have you got a substitute?
Well, it's all changed this season, actually, and we've got a new scoreboard coming in. It's all been streamlined, so there's only one person that covers the scoreboard, the sound, the work. So I'm not quite sure who's going to cover me in terms of on the pitch. Jordan Clark, I should be at Portsmouth tonight, but Jordan Clark from Hot Radio is covering me.
Oh, well, he does a good job on the station. I'm sure he'll be good on the pitch as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you don't do a radio show on Hot Radio?
No, I don't. It's something we looked at when it first came to everyone's attention. We looked at the potential for a Friday night slot with players. I think Fletcher was mentioned as a possible co-host, but it never really materialised. And with me moving away, that's obviously made it more difficult.
Yeah, I can remember Fletch talking about him having his radio show. I think that was last season, wasn't it? And I just trawled the internet to find any indication of when it was starting, but it never seemed to get off the ground.
No, it didn't, no.
That would have been enjoyable. He's never short of a few words.
Oh, my goodness, no.
We've seen quite a few things going on at half time. Is there anything new planned for this season? Because you've got the penalty competition with Cherry Bear. My son participated in that on the day when the Nando's chicken was in goal and he saved every single one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've always wanted to do On My Shed, Son, which just for the play on words really, and that's where you have a shed with no roof on in the centre circle, and people try and sort of kick it into the shed, and if they win it, they win the shed. I'd really like to do that, but it's finding a sponsor. But now we're in the Championship, maybe that'll be a little bit easier. I like to mix it up a little bit. It's nice to get the kids involved. To be fair, I expect your son went home and talked about that at length, and will remember that for a long time. And
we haven't eaten at Nando's since.
But yeah, I do quite like to get the kids out and get them involved in it. Really, the crossbar challenge. It's okay. When I first started doing it, I don't think there was any halftime entertainment at all, other than birthdays and shout outs. So we've just tried to introduce a little bit because that's what happens up and down the country, and I didn't see any reason why we shouldn't either.
Now we had those big inflatable balls. What is it, Zorba?
Yeah, we had the Zorb, so I'm not sure how well that really worked in truth. Again, it's not really that much of a spectacle like the crossbar challenge. It does become a bit of an anticlimax if no one sort of falls over and hurts themselves or hits the crossbar.
I quite like the crossbar challenge though. It's simplicity. You can tell what's going on. You can see who the winners and losers are. There's no doubt about what's happening. It's quite funny when people don't get under the ball and it just trickles along the ground, or they're wearing the wrong foot. Somebody borrowed your shoes the other night, didn't they? They
did, yeah, against Real Madrid. Yeah, somebody borrowed my shoes. Yeah, he'd come in his flip flops. So why he was volunteering in the first place, I don't know. I mean, the cement mixers stand out as a memorable moment at half time. Trying to dink the balls into the cement mixers. That was all a bit surreal.
The best one I ever saw at another ground was when I went to QPR when we played them once. They were down in League One a few seasons ago. This was another simple one. I think it happens at other grounds. They put a pole in the D or a cone, and they had to run around it about 10 times and then try and take a penalty. It's hilarious.
I was at that game, and I came back and I suggested that, and we did do it a couple of times, but nobody really fell over. Okay. So I was left kind of. I let that one go again. But the night we saw it at QPR, I was very impressed. It was a good laugh.
They were unable to kick the ball or stand up. I think it probably comes down to how many times you run around the cone, because I think I saw it somewhere else and they did it about 3 times and it just wasn't enough.
No, that's right. And I think it helps if you can pick somebody out of the crowd that looks like they're maybe a little bit under the influence as well.
I'm not sure if that's always a good idea.
That will help to create a fall, I think. So maybe if we revive that, that's what I'll do. You
did the wave on Sunday as well. Is that going to be a regular feature?
Absolutely not. No. I've done that a couple of times, and I always get comments from the kind of the hardcore Bournemouth fans about a Mexican wave, and I would totally agree. I would hate to see that enter the a league game. But where there's a bit of a one-off like that, Real Madrid was a one-off, and at the England games when we hosted the youth internationals, I did the same there. It was just a bit of a giggle, really. And that little lad who finished the Mexican wave off, Tino, I got a really nice email from him and his dad thanking me and saying it made their night. So a bit of fun against Real Madrid. If we get Barca down next season, maybe I'll do it. But aside from that, don't expect to see it again anytime soon.
No, I think it's the kind of thing that the curmudgeonly traditionalist looks at and thinks, oh dear, we don't want this creeping into our game. But like you say, it's just a bit of fun. It's not that bad. Moving on to Real then, what was it like rubbing shoulders with the glitz and the glamour on Sunday? Was it a pleasant experience or was it a bit stressful?
No, it wasn't stressful at all, actually. I'd well rehearsed and double-checked and triple-checked the announcements and the pronunciations of the names. I was there really early. I was there 5 hours before kickoff, and I was advised that the security was going to be really tight. So I got there super early, along with an awful lot of the staff, and just waited really for the team coach to arrive. And when it did, it was it was surreal. I mean, it was surreal, I'm sure, for people watching the game, but being in the tunnel there, and I don't know whether the likes of Pewey and Noonan will mind me saying, but they were like giddy teenagers in the tunnel. We were given a memo. I don't know how much I'm leaking here, but we were given a memo that we weren't to approach Real Madrid players or staff for photos or for autographs, and that was a complete no-no. And I can understand that from a player's point of view if you're playing in the game, because you want to be of the mindset that you're in the game. But for those injured players, and for myself and one or two others in the tunnel, we had our sort of camera phones out. You weren't allowed to take photos, so we were all just randomly stood there pretending we were on the phone, kind of sneaking the odd picture when they first came in. And actually, as time went by, they loosened up, and they loosened up really quickly. So I had a photo with Kaka and Ozil and Ronaldo. That was all good fun, and I know that a few of the boys got sort of shirts signed and such like. So I think they lay it on pretty thick, and no wonder they're a big old club and they must get sick of it. But actually, they were all very down to earth.
Yeah, it was a jaw-dropping experience. I walked in with my son and we went to the side of the pitch. You stand by the advertising hoardings, and I could see Zinedine Zidane standing about 10 yards away, and it was a good 5 minutes before I could take my eyes off him.
Yeah, well, I actually hadn't clocked, and that's probably poor knowledge on my part, but I hadn't clocked that Zidane was working for the club. And yeah, he was the first person to sort of come in off the coach into the tunnel. And yeah, my jaw also dropped.
You had the opening of the Ted McDougall stand as well. It must have been quite a pleasant experience meeting up with Ted and opening that.
Yeah, I've met Ted a few times. He's come back. He still follows the club very closely, and he's come back once or twice. When we've been in trouble, actually, when we've needed money, he's come back once or twice and helped us out with fundraisers. So it was good to see him again. And yeah, a fitting tribute, I think, naming the stand after him. My late dad, he was his favourite player. He was there at the Margate game. And yeah, so it was good to see him. And he really does care. And he was on good form. So, and doesn't it look great having four sides? It makes such a difference.
You kind of got used to the fact that there wasn't another stand. You stop noticing, don't you? But then when there is one, you think, oh, wow, this is what it will look like when it's finished.
Well, that's right. We've waited a long time for that. I was really excited when we went up, but doubly excited when it was confirmed that we were going to have a fourth stand there, because it makes such a difference in terms of an atmosphere, and I think we'll see that this season, and particularly when you have us shooting to and away from away supporters as well as home supporters. So there will be games when we'll have away fans in there, and facing the fans from behind each goal, I think it's going to create a really good atmosphere.
I think it might make it more difficult for you to pick out who the scorers are, though, because there's a bit more like white noise because there's more people behind the goal.
Yeah, there is that. Well, we'll see how we get on. I'll take it for now, though. I think I was really, really impressed, not just with the quality of the stand, but just how quickly they got it up. So, hats off to the guys that put that up.
We waited 13 years and it went up in 3 weeks.
Yeah, mad, isn't it?
What did you think of Mohamed Koulibaly the other night? I was pretty impressed.
He looked really, really good. Reminded me a little bit of Maxi Gradle in his style of play. Just got his head down and a bit of pace. Quite small, tricky little winger. Yeah, I think he looks a good prospect, and goodness knows where we've picked him up from. Because he's not played many professional games, but yeah, he looks a prospect, and I think to have cover on the wings will stand us in good stead this season.
Yeah, he's got that thing I noticed where he can drop his shoulder as he receives the ball, send some very famous defenders the wrong way and nip round them. So let's hope it's a good omen for life in the Championship.
Well, you just wonder where he'll fit, because obviously we've got Pugh, we've got Richie as our two first choice wingers, you would imagine, at present. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what system Eddie goes for this season and where he plays Mohamed if he does indeed play him.
Well, Pugh's made a comeback tonight, hasn't he? But Richie's still out injured, so we do need somebody else there. And obviously Koulibaly at the moment looks like he could be the man, but he also plays up front, doesn't he?
Yeah, and of course, as most people are saying right now, that does look the position where we're lacking depth, which is ironic if you look at the way we started last season, the amount of strikers we had on the books, and bringing Brett in as well. I think we had 8 or 9 strikers, didn't we, last season? So, but in terms of depth and quality up front, I think we could do with strengthening. That seems to me the obvious area that needs working on.
Yeah, I think Eddie's probably got something up his sleeve. He usually keeps his cards pretty close to his chest.
Yeah, I hope so. And I just think somebody that can hold the ball up, a Fletch-style player, they're hard to find these days. But somebody with a bit of physical presence up front to, for Brett or for Lewis to play off.
You must have enjoyed Stephen Purchase's comeback game last week.
Yeah, I did. Again, it's a pre-season friendly, so I'm not a massive fan of friendlies, but it's very, very rare, isn't it, now in the modern game that you have a player that puts in 10 years service at a club. Albeit this one a bit of a broken service, but he's a top guy. I mean, he's just genuinely one of the nicest guys I've come across at Bournemouth. I've dealt with an awful lot of players down the years. You have to drag them out to do presentations and such like, and you get chatting to them on the sidelines, and he is just the most personable bloke. And I'm delighted for him that he's got this new role in the club as well, looking with the development squad and the reserves. And you couldn't have wished a day like that for a nicer guy.
I went to the game against Dagenham Redbridge. I don't know if you were at this one, when Mark Molesley scored in the very last minute away from home. It was pandemonium afterwards, and I was sat about 3 or 4 seats away from Perch. He'd obviously come over to watch that night, and he was going crazy like the rest of us. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it, that we do seem to, as a club, we do seem to do that to players. We do seem to have an awful lot of them come back and watch. That there is an attachment there, a genuine attachment with a number of players that have have gone away and then have wanted to come back. And I think Perchie, given half the chance, never would have left us in the first place. But the way talks went, it just meant that Orient was the option he'd need to take.
Let's hope that attachment with the players continues in the future, which brings me on to something I read this week about Eddie Mitchell's Premiership ambitions. I think when I read that, I had a bit of a feeling probably shared with quite a lot of supporters in terms of, well, maybe we should try and consolidate in the Championship first. But at the same time, I think, well, we're a football club. Our job is to try and win football matches, so maybe we should be aiming as high as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's naturally as a football fan, but probably more so as a Bournemouth fan, that you're ever so cautious when people make statements like that, because we're used to stuff kind of going wrong. I'd love to see us in the Premiership. Do I think we'll get there anytime soon? Maybe. I mean, we're there with momentum, aren't we? That's the thing. Now is the time, I think, if we're going to do it, that maybe this is the time we do it, because we have got the momentum. There is a real feel-good factor around the club and around the town, and maybe, just maybe, but it's a right old ask, isn't it? That's a tough league that we're going to be playing in this season.
It's a lot to take in to think that we could be gunning for the Premiership, a club of our size and history. And obviously, as you also referred to there, we've had so much difficulty over the years. We've kind of were, until very recently, the poster club for how not to run a football team. There's loads of examples around us. My dad supports Coventry, and they're in so much trouble at the moment, and the team's just sliding financially completely out of control. And I think that's what a lot of people fear. And there always seems to be a certain amount of suspicion amongst fans about exactly what is going on with the finances.
Yeah, totally, and I get that, and you know, I'll admit to being sceptical in the past myself. It's funny you say about Coventry; they're my second team, and in fact, they were my glory team until recently, and of course now we've overtaken them. I wish them well. I hope they sort it out. I don't like the fact that they've moved to Northampton, but yeah, I hope things pick up. But going back to what you said about worrying about us maybe going bust down the line, I think that's maybe what you were sort of leaning towards. I just think we've had so many years of financial heartache and ruin. If we're going to go bust, let's do it and start actually having a go. Do you know what I mean? We've had so many years where we've not been able to pay the bills, yet we've had no success really to show for that. It's not like we've gone boom or bust. We've just struggled upon struggle, and maybe that's legacy from the Redknapp era. But regardless, it's a long time since we actually proper chucked some money at something, and I just enjoy the ride, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's what we were saying on the last podcast with Tom. I largely agree with that. I guess I see it from both sides, really. On the one hand, there is the worries. On the other hand, it's brilliant that we're doing so well. And what is the point of supporting a football club if you don't want them to win, if you don't want them to get promoted? And you kind of have to balance those two things out.
Yeah. But I just think if you look at the transformation that's happened there, clearly what we're trying to do is market the club as a kind of a stylish coastal club that players are going to want to come and play for, and fans are going to want to come and watch. And there is the potential there. I know people say that Bournemouth's not a football town, and I think that's probably true at the moment. But there's massive potential there. You look down the road at Southampton and Portsmouth, that's quite a big catchment area we've got until you get to the likes of Southampton. Just, watch this space. I think we'll do all right this season.
We're the biggest conurbation in terms of population that has never had a team in the top division of English football. It used to be Hull, but they've been up a couple of times recently.
Well, there you go. Maybe it's our turn. You never know.
All right then, Mike. Thanks for coming on the show. Maybe you could sign off with one of your traditional make some noise for the boys cries.
Do you know what? I cringe inside sometimes when I'm doing it.
So the Ted McDougall stand.
Ted McDougall stand, make some noise for the boys.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on the show, Mike.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks again to Mike for coming on the show, and you can see him in action at every home game in the Championship this season. Well, you might remember that in our last episode, we had our very first competition on all departments to win a pair of tickets to an audience with Steve Fletcher on August the 1st at Bournemouth Pier. We had a stack of entries for that one, and our lucky winner was Adrian Jacob. AD sells programmes outside the ground on match days, and I'm looking forward to seeing him there on the night. We're now joined by Ross Good of Showbiz Town, who are promoting the big man's big night out. Ross, welcome to All Departments.
Hello, how are you? All right?
Now, just tell us a bit about the audience with Steve Fletcher. What can people expect on the night?
Well, the idea came about that being that I've been a local Bournemouth sort of man for many years, and being that I've been here since Fletcher's been at the club, when his retirement came in, it was no surprise how much applause he got for his career, how many people were congratulating him. So the idea come that, we give the fans a night where they can appreciate his career, listen to it, and sort of ask questions. And also another idea we had was obviously sort of hear his all-time Cherries 11, hear some stories about his teammates, about his matches, his goals. So that's where the idea come from, and that's kind of where we thought we'd go with it.
And was it difficult to get Fletch to go with it himself?
No, it's all brilliant from the start. We got in touch with Fletch. He was really interested, said that, obviously how much he respects the fans, and it was really, really good. So from the off, we obviously put it to him, and he was very helpful, very happy from the start.
And you've moved the start time back to 8:30 to avoid the clash with Solent. Were you a bit surprised when that happened?
Not really. It's these things happen. There's so many things going on. Obviously, we chose it just before the start of the season. Obviously, FC Bournemouth got to do their preparation as well. But we just thought we don't want people missing out, because obviously we know how important the club is to all the fans. So that's why we weren't too bothered at all to move the time. We want as many people to come to both as we possibly can do.
Will there be more audience whiffs that the fans can look forward to?
Hopefully, yes. We'd like to, if this one goes well, which at the moment looking very sort of healthy. Everyone seems to be really looking forward to it, happy about it, and then watch this space really.
And you do other stuff as well, I understand, like celebrity football teams.
We do indeed, yeah. We've got our own sort of celebrity football team called Showbiz Town FC, a collection of sort of ex-professionals and sort of personalities from TV and radio. So yeah, that's quite a new venture, and that'll be sort of more nationwide for non-league teams to play against. So yeah, very new sort of project, but a very exciting one as well.
Any ex-Cherry stars going to be featuring in those games?
Yes, one in particular, Mr. Sean Teal is one of the managers. We've got a few options for managers, and Sean is one of the players. Yes.
Excellent. We'd like to see him play again. He was always solid in defence for us. Before we wind up, just let people know how they can get in touch with you, where they can buy tickets, and just a few more details about the evening.
Yeah, well, the evening will take place on Thursday, August the 1st, and it'll be at Key West, which is the bar and restaurant at the end of Bournemouth Pier. It's a lovely venue, really nice on a summer's night, which it will be. The tickets are on sale at TicketWeb. So if you go to www.ticketweb.co.uk and search Steve Fletcher in the search bar, it will bring up all the details and all the ticket prices. There's two options, one ticket only and another one with a ticket and a basket meal. It is over 18s due to them being a comedian as well, but there'll be plenty of good moments in the night, hopefully. Fletch talking all about his career, about Bournemouth, and then answering some questions from fans also, and of course the Cherries top 11 who picking as well.
The comedian's not Warren Cummings, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's Mr. Scott Charlton. He's a very well-known and respected comedian, very funny, and he's going to make a lot laugh on the night.
Yeah, it will be brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it. All right then, Ross. Well, thanks for coming on All Departments, and we'll see you on the night.
Thank you ever so much. Thanks for your support, and I hopefully see as many people as possible. Thanks very much.
Another member of the Cherry Nation who's been in touch recently is David Whitehead. Over the years, David has produced books about the Old Dean Court and the day we won the playoff final in Cardiff, and he's hoping to do another. This one's provisionally entitled 182 Days, which, as I'm sure many of you already know, was the amount of time between the arrival of Eddie and Jason back home at Dean Court and our promotion to the Championship. David's on the lookout for contributions from fellow Cherries, so if you fancy doing a piece for the book about our fantastic turnaround in those 182 days, you can contact David by emailing dwitehead@btinternet.com. I've already started penning my one for that, and I hope it meets with the editor's approval. Well, we often end the show with a top tune from our red and black pitted past. Fortunately, my small pile of cherry red records has received a timely boost recently with a new track from local band Sounds Like Adam, who have marked our return to the Championship by recording Eddie's Army. We're hoping to get Adam on the show soon to tell us how it all came about, but in the meantime, you can download the song on iTunes and watch the band on YouTube by following the links on the All Departments website. So up the cherries in All Departments, and goodbye.
Championship. Before we knew it, we're cruising a road of draws and wins. Suffolk and friends, that's where the story begins. Cause after Preston and Sheffield, horizons didn't look so clear. The new year scared us all with injuries. That was nothing compared to the results we'd see. With Mark surging down the wing, stopping everything, keeping strikes at bay. That FA Cup display, working on the scores, winning League One, and Crooks debut header on promotion day. So we'll sing it loud, so they'll see us proud. Throw our arms in the air at the goal signs. The future starts now, and we'll aim for the skies in the league where dreams are realised. Here comes Eddie's army shot at the championship. And we'll keep the red flag flying high indefinitely. From QPR to Millwall, Ipswich, Burnley and Leeds. Despite Doncaster stealing titles in added time, here's a brand new season, and it's our moment to shine.
What I always thought was a little bit of a fantasy has turned into a real dream and the reality. It's incredible.
As a supporter, you want success so much. You want to see the club move on. Thankfully, we've given that to a really loyal group of supporters.